Okay, so today we're going to move on from those four characteristics to using them to actually graph the quadratic function. So, what are the four parts of a quadratic function? Do you remember from yesterday? Well, one is the axis of symmetry. Another one is the vertex. Another one is the y-intercept, and in this case, the y-intercept is the vertex. And the final one is maximum or minimum, and in this case we have a minimum. Alright, so we're going to use those four pieces in order to graph an equation. So I've got these steps for you. I'd like you to tape, staple, or glue this into your notebook. The first step is to find the axis of symmetry, and we do that using the formula we talked about yesterday. You will need to learn this formula. The second step is to find the vertex, and we talked about how to do that yesterday by substituting in what you found x as into the original quadratic equation, and then you get the x comma y of the vertex. The third step is the easiest, to find the y-intercept. It's always going to be 0, comma, that was not the real bell, that was the bell at 7:30 this morning. The y-intercept is always going to be 0, comma, c. Okay? And then we'll talk about these other two steps as we go. Okay, so step one, we need to find the axis of symmetry. So we're going to use x equals negative b divided by 2a. So remember, this is a, this is b, and this is c. In this case, they are all negatives. So this is going to be negative 8 divided by 2 times negative 2. So now we can simplify that. We got negative 8 divided by negative 4. What's a negative divided by a negative? A positive. So then, see how we have 3 negatives here? We're going to end up with only 1 negative. Negatives in pairs are positive. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals negative 2. So I can draw that dotted line, the axis of symmetry, onto my graph. That'll help me to see where my parabola folds in half, because remember, it's symmetric. This is a really important property of quadratic functions when you're graphing them. If you know that there's a point on one side, then there has to be a point on the other side at the same spot, and this will make your life really easy. Alright, step 2. Now we need to find the vertex. So we're going to use that x that we found and substitute it into the original equation instead of x. So instead of x, I'm writing negative 2. And now all I have to do is solve that. Plug it in my calculator. Remember to use parentheses. Negative 2 times parentheses negative 2 squared minus 8 times negative 2 minus 2 gives me 6. So that means that my vertex is the x that I plugged in, comma, 6. So I'm going to put that on my graph. Negative 2, 6. That goes up here. Big old point right there so you can see it. Alright, so I've done step 1 and step 2. Let's go back. What was step 3? Step 3 is to find the y-intercept. Remember, it's 0, comma, c. Okay, so 0, comma, c. It's going to be 0, comma, negative 2. So I go 0 and down 2. So my point is going to be right there. Now this is where that symmetry thing comes in really handy. Okay? Let me record that information. Notice I'm keeping all of my information nice, neat, in one spot so I can see it. So 0, -2, that point is right here. Remember, this is going to be a parabola, so it is symmetric, so it folds at this dotted line. So if I were to fold that in half, where would that point end up on the other side? Well, it's 2 spaces away from the dotted line, so 2 spaces away from the dotted line, there's where that point is. So far I have 3 points on my parabola. What I need now is to know how close it is, how narrow or how wide it is. It's going to be a fat curve, a skinny curve. We need to find one more point. And that is your step number 4. Find one more point. We need to choose an x value. How do we choose an x value? Well, the important thing here is that we think about what x values we've already used. Where's the x-axis? Right here. So we have used the x value of 0. We found that it's -2. We have used the x value of -2. We found that it's 6. And we've used the x value of -4. We found that it's -2. I could make a table of that information. 0, -2, -2, 6, and -4, -2. So I need to choose one more x value. I could choose any x value that is not already in my table. However, it'd be logical to choose an x value that is close to one of those numbers so that it doesn't go way off your graph. So if I were you, I would choose -1, -3. You might even choose 1 or -5 because they're close to the points that we've already found. Okay? So let's go with -1. It seems like an easy number to work with. So we're going to take our original equation, and instead of x, we're going to plug in -1. And we're going to plug that into our calculator. -2 parentheses -1 squared minus 8 times -1 minus 2 gives us 4. So that's going to give me the ordered pair, the x value that I chose, comma the answer. So let's go put that on our graph. -1, 4. It's going to go right about there. Now remember, same thing again, this reflects over the axis of symmetry. So it's 1 space away from, so 1 space away from. Now I have 5 beautiful points. I can connect them with a nice, smooth, U-shaped curve. You did it. That's how you graph a quadratic equation. It's actually pretty simple. You only have to do the long math twice. That's a lot better than using a table. Let's do one more. First step, axis of symmetry. X equals -b divided by 2a. I recommend you always write down the formula before you do it, because that helps you to remember the formula and memorize it. So remember, b is -8. 2 times a, which is 2. Gives me a -8 divided by 4. I've got 2 negatives here. That'll become a positive 2. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals 2. So I'm going to draw a dotted line at x equals 2. Notice that it's really important that you create your graph as you go. It helps you to visualize and to make decisions while you're doing your math. All right, after I find the axis of symmetry, I take that value that I found for x and I plug it into the original equation. plug that into my calculator real quick. No negatives, so no need for parentheses this time. Minus 8 times 2 minus 4, negative 12. Oof, this is not going to fit on my graph. Let me double check my math. That's 4 times 2 is 8, minus 16, minus 4. Yep, that seems right. Okay, so that means I've got 2 comma negative 12. Guess what? I'm going to erase 2 negative 12. Okay, I'm going to erase my axis of symmetry there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go by 2's on my graph. I'd recommend that you stick with going by 1's on yours. You can make more space. I can't. Okay? So all of this is going to change to go by 2's. Everything. Okay? So that means my axis of symmetry is now going to be drawn here at 2. And that point 2 negative 12 is going to be right here. Okay, so now that we have our vertex, the next step is to find our y-intercept. And the y-intercept is always 0, comma, c. So that's going to be at 0, negative 4, which is right here. And remember, we need to cross that across the axis of symmetry. It's 2 spaces away on yours, 1 space away on mine. Alright, now we need a third point. So we've got 0, negative 4. So what x values have we found so far? We've found 0, negative 4. We've found 2, negative 12. And we have found 4, negative 4. Okay, so it would be very easy for us to use the x value of 1. Anytime you can use one of those small numbers for x, I recommend it. So let's plug that in. We've got y equals 2 times 1 squared minus 8 times 1 minus 4. Plug that into the calculator. That's 2 minus 8 minus 4. Gives us negative 10. So that last point then that I have found is 1, negative 10. So going to my graph, 1, negative 10 is going to be right about here in the middle. Mine's not going to be as pretty as yours, but we get the idea. Connect it with a nice smooth curve. Arrows on the ends. You have a parabola. Alright, so I've got 2 homework problems for you guys tonight. Graph the quadratic equation. Use all those steps. Do your best.